Hi, I'd like to take this opportunity into showing you how you can turn adversity into opportunity. And the adversity that I'm thinking about is anxiety. We would typically think of anxiety as being an adverse experience. But suppose I could show you how to turn the adversity of anxiety into the opportunity to retrain your brain. Wouldn't that be fabulous? So, before I do that, please can I ask you to subscribe to my channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button so that you're notified the next time I put a video out. Please like the video if you like it and you find it useful. Please leave comments, because I often use comments as a way to focus my new videos. So if there's something they'd like to know about, something you'd like more clarity on, then please just mention it in a comment and I'll take that on board. And you might find that I'm answering your question or whatever in a video. So, how to turn the adversity of anxiety into the opportunity to retrain your brain. So, I don't want to get too sort of far into the philosophy of reality in a sense, but I do want to just flag this up. We live in the world and we assume that the world we live in is as it is. We interact with things and we assume that everything, in a sense, is as it should be. And we have no way of knowing if the reality that we see, we interact with, we perceive, we have no way of knowing if that's actually accurate, because we just assume everything is as it is. But when we start to feel anxious, we all of a sudden have an opportunity to recognize that our brain is creating an internal reality, a version of reality that does not work for us, because anxiety just doesn't work for you, okay? And so anxiety is an opportunity for you to see the workings of your brain in action and for us to be able to challenge and change it, which basically means retrain your brain. And when you retrain your brain, you get a different experience. So my goal for you, and I hope it's your goal for yourself, is to retrain your brain so that you don't have anxiety, which actually will mean that your brain is more calibrated to external reality in a more useful and efficient way for your life. Now, I'd also say that most mental health problems are also a miscalibration made by your brain. They're basically a mistake made by your brain. So, let's get to the sort of nuts and bolts of how we do it. The first thing is this. We have to change your attitude to recognize anxiety as an opportunity. Now, it's very hard, and I appreciate this, it's very hard to recognize anxiety as an opportunity because anxiety is basically the emotion of fear. And it's hard to see fear as an opportunity. So, I don't know, maybe 1 million years ago, your direct ancestors they had probably a very similar physiology, but certainly the fight or flight system would be the same 1 million years ago. So if your ancestors felt fear, they had to pay attention to it. And even now, you cannot ignore the emotion of fear. The reason being, it's built into us. Because if your ancestors 1 million years ago felt fear, they had to pay attention because that signal of fear that your brain has detected might be the thing that keeps you alive. If you could ignore fear, well, if your ancestors could ignore fear, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I'd be talking to just a blank screen because you wouldn't be here. Because if your ancestors could ignore fear, they wouldn't survive. They just would not survive. So it works pretty well, okay? Fear has to be attended to. You can't ignore it. And historically, fear told you that there was, well, it suggested to you that there's something that you need to check out. Maybe you need to fight. Maybe you need to flee, or in extreme circumstances you might freeze, but definitely it was something that you had to do something about. Okay, now I don't know about you, but I don't have any external threats. I drive, I eat food, I go out and about. We have COVID, of course, but you know, I stay safe, so we don't really have any external threats. Some people do have external threats, and people who have external threats feel fear, and they respond to it in a way that works for them. They respond to fear. They stay safe. They do whatever they do. But you and I, more than likely, do not have any external threats. What we have are internal threats. We have imagination, we have catastrophic thinking, we have worry, we have what ifs, we have images and scenarios that we create about bad things happening to us. That's not a threat. That is a fantasy. So anxiety is the emotion of fear created by a fantasy, by an imagination. So let's recap. Fear is the pure emotion that enables us to deal with an external threat, an external reality threat, as I like to call it. Anxiety is the experience of fear without a threat. Now, if you can make sense of that, you've taken a huge step forward in retraining your brain out of anxiety. Because most people don't know that. I have worked with hundreds and hundreds of people, in excess of 800 clients, and I'll swear to you that most people do not know that anxiety is the emotion of fear without a threat. Because you still feel fear, and therefore you still have to figure out where the threat is. The trouble is, I've talked to many people who say, I feel anxious, I don't know why. I've talked to people who wake up in the middle of the night with a panic attack, or they wake in the morning with anxiety, but they don't know why. Because with anxiety, there is no actual threat. The threat is created in your imagination. Now, if you want to get good at something, you've got to practice. So, you can get really good at creating feelings, catastrophic imaginations of threat, hardly without even noticing it. But nevertheless, anxiety is the emotion of threat, is the emotion of fear, without threat. Now, when you feel anxiety, your brain has made a mistake, because your brain cannot tell the difference. Well, not easily anyway. It certainly seems not to be able to tell the difference between a real external threat and an imaginary threat. It can't tell the difference. So you have the same fight or flight response. But as I've said, you don't really have anything that you can focus on to deal with. So you end up just being anxious, and you can be anxious for 10, 20, 30. You can be anxious the whole of your life. And there's no reason for that to change unless you retrain your brain, which is what we're talking about right now. Anxiety, I hope you've sort of recognized, is not something that you have to have. Anxiety is the consequence of imagining things that don't happen. You might say, yeah, well, it might happen. Well, how long have you been anxious? How long have you been worrying? How long have you been imagining things that didn't happen? So, not being anxious does not in any way impair your ability to manage things that happen. All it really does is stop you from being concerned about things that never happened anyway and won't happen. When something actually happens, you've got all your human strengths and resources. So, it's really important that we get our head around this idea that your brain is making a mistake when it makes you feel anxious, but it does not know. It doesn't know that it's making a mistake. Therefore, we have to retrain your brain. So the first thing is we have to recognize that even though you feel frightened, and even though you feel the fear, and we could say, well, I feel the anxiety, even though you feel it, it's not valid and accurate, right? Anxiety is not valid and it's not accurate. Now, the next step is that we need to start the retraining process. So, this is a tool that I use with clients. I invented it 20 years ago. It always works. I'm going to share it with you today. In external reality, you are safe. I am standing here and I am safe. I might not feel safe. So we might have a situation where I am safe, but I don't feel safe. And that's absolutely typical for anxiety. You are safe because you are safe. You just don't feel safe, and that's anxiety. Okay. So the retraining part is this. We've got to get your brain to recognize that your feelings are not accurate or valid. I mean, you're definitely having the feelings, but they're not accurate or valid. Your situation, wherever you are, does not require that emotion. And so this is true. I am safer than I feel I am. Now that's a true thing, okay? Even though it's true, you don't believe it. It doesn't feel true because you don't feel safe. So we have the problem, and this is how I describe it to my clients, right? You are true, you don't feel true. So what we need to do is we need to recalibrate your brain so that your emotions move to be more in line with reality, because the reality is you are safe. And so this statement is true. I am safer than I feel I am. I am safer than I feel I am. And that simple statement, which I call a mantra, captures an important element of this reprogramming, this retraining process, because it tells your brain that how you feel does not accurately reflect reality. Now, your brain really wants to be calibrated to reality, because that's the best way to keep you alive. If you're not calibrated to reality, you can walk into traffic, you eat things which are poisonous, and you forget to wash, you do all sorts of strange things. So your brain wants to be calibrated to reality. So all we've got to do is provide the pathway for it. And this is what we do. We say this: I am safer than I feel I am. But we do 10 repetitions. I'm safer than I feel I am. 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 10 repetitions in a set. I like people to say it under their breath. I'm safer than I feel I am. I'm safer than I feel I am. I like you to move your mouth. I like you to hear it with your ears. And I like you to think it. And we do 10 repetitions in a set. And then we do 20 sets a day, spread out throughout the day. Whoa, 20 sets a day. I've got to work. How will I find the time to do that? The whole thing will take you 6 minutes. But if you do this exercise for a week, you will feel safer. And if you feel safer, you feel less anxious. And that is the process by which, or it's this step of the process by which we retrain your brain. Now, if you really want to get into it, say this to yourself. Say, I feel safe. I feel safe, okay. How true does that feel? 0, it's not at all safe. 10, it's completely safe. And just give yourself a rating. So, like today, after watching this video, go, I feel safe, 3. Okay. Do the exercise for a week. Then again say to yourself, I feel safe. How true does that feel? I feel safe, okay. Ah, it's a 7, okay. You have then just demonstrated that you have retrained your brain, because you have made your emotions move to be more in line with reality, and that will make you less anxious, and that is retraining your brain, because your brain has been helped along the path to see what's actually going on, as opposed to being wedded to the negative catastrophic imaginations. The third step is this: emotions are motivators. Emotions make you do stuff. And the emotion of fear makes you want to run away, makes you want to hide, makes you want to freeze, makes you want to withdraw, avoid, not do. It makes you want to go backwards in your life. And so we have to do the opposite of what the emotion tells us to do. So if your emotion says don't go out, you go out. If your emotion says hide, you don't hide. If your emotion says don't speak, you speak. If your emotion says withdraw, you push forward. Basically, we do the opposite of the negative emotion, because the negative emotion is not accurate and valid. If we do what the emotion tells us to do, we are reinforcing this emotion, and therefore we get more of it. But when we do the opposite of what the emotion wants us to do, we are moving forward, and we are again retraining your brain that the emotion is not valid, because you're doing the opposite of what it suggests that you do. And after a little bit, it'll be different for everybody. Your brain will just stop giving you the emotion of fear inappropriately. You just forget to be anxious, which is what I like my clients to say, oh, I forgot to be anxious this week. Yeah, because you retrained your brain. So, 3 steps. The first one is we recognize anxiety as an opportunity to retrain your brain, even though you feel fear, because of course you'll feel fear, because your brain's creating imaginations that make you feel fear. The second step is we provide a path for your brain to sort of be retrained along, and that's I am safer than I feel I am. I am safer than I feel. That's true. All we're doing with the mantra is we're practicing believing it. And the third thing is we do the opposite of what the negative emotion tells us to do. The negative emotion tells us to stay in bed, we get up. And by doing that, we challenge, your brain recognizes that we challenge the validity and the accuracy of the emotion. So, 3 steps to turn the adversity of anxiety into the opportunity to retrain your brain. Again, please subscribe, please like, please leave comments. I know that this might seem simple stuff, but I promise you it's little known. The things that I've told you today are the result of over 20 years of practicing as a cognitive therapist. Everything I've told you today works. I use it with clients. And if you do that exercise, you will have the experience of retraining your brain. If you put enough effort into it, you'll simply forget to be anxious. I'm not suggesting that this video alone gives you everything, but it definitely starts you on the path. And how fabulous is that? Thanks for taking the time to watch and listen.